Have you ever noticed how depression often creeps in, right at the moment when your life finally seems to be under control? When you're doing everything right, on paper. Your career is stable, your relationships look fine, you're following the rules, staying productive, even hitting your goals. And then, without warning, an invisible weight begins to press on your chest. You feel empty, numb, unmotivated, and you don't understand why. But what if I told you, this isn't failure? What if this is the beginning of something deeper? Waking up inside you? Subscribe to Espelho Interno, leave a like, comment below with your experience, and share this message with someone who might need it. What you'll hear in this video may challenge your understanding of mental health, but it could also completely transform how you relate to your inner world. We live in a world that worships control. Control over our schedule, control over our image, control over our success. And yet, it is often at the very peak of that control, when things seem most together, that a quiet, suffocating sadness begins to seep in. Carl Jung once wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And depression, he believed, is often not a defect, but a signal, a profound invitation to finally stop avoiding. Because here's a truth no one tells you. The version of you that has everything under control may not be your true self. Often, when you are functioning at your highest level, you are simultaneously the furthest from your own soul. You're operating according to the outer world's demands, performing in a role that society deems successful. But inside, something ancient is stirring, something wild, something real. Jung saw depression not as a mere illness to eliminate, but as the psyche's attempt to rebalance itself. When one part of your being, your conscious persona, becomes inflated and dominant, the unconscious pushes back, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. That ache you feel, that hollow sadness that shows up when everything's fine, it's not random. It's the voice of the forgotten self calling to you. And this is why depression often shows up when we finally get what we thought we wanted. Because what we wanted wasn't what our soul needed. Think about it. You achieve the career you fought for. You build the relationship everyone admires. You wake up every day with structure and responsibility. But at night, there's a silence that frightens you. A darkness that makes no sense. You ask, what's wrong with me? But the better question is, what part of me have I abandoned in the process of building this life? This is where Jung's concept of the shadow becomes vital. The shadow is everything you've rejected about yourself. The impulses you deemed unacceptable, the desires you were told to suppress, the sadness you never allowed yourself to feel, the rage, the confusion, the weakness, all buried to maintain control. But the shadow doesn't disappear. It waits. And when the mask of control is finally secure, when your performance is perfect, that's when the shadow knocks. Through dreams, through fatigue, through unexplainable sadness. And this sadness is not your enemy. It is your invitation. An invitation to break the illusion of the well-adjusted persona and begin the real work, integrating the parts of you that were never given a voice. So when depression arises at the height of your control, it is not a betrayal. It is the moment your soul finally dares to say, this isn't enough. You can silence it with medication. You can numb it with distraction. You can busy yourself with achievement. But it will return, because something deeper is trying to be known, and that something will not be satisfied with surface-level success. It wants the truth of who you are when you're no longer pretending, the truth of what you feel when you're no longer performing, the truth of what you love, what you fear, and what you've buried beneath control. This truth does not always come in light. Sometimes it arrives through dissent. Through the darkness, you tried to escape, but that darkness is sacred. Jung called it the night sea journey. A necessary passage through chaos, where the ego dissolves and something greater can be reborn. What if your depression isn't a malfunction, but the beginning of that journey? And what if, by facing it, rather than fleeing, you could find not just relief, but a deeper kind of power? We're only just beginning to explore this. There are revelations ahead that will change how you see depression, not as an enemy to eliminate, but as a message to decode. Imagine a life meticulously built. You've done everything right. You've followed the blueprint: education, career, relationships, goals. You've crossed the checklist of adulthood. And still, you wake up feeling like something is missing. Carl Jung believed that the modern individual often finds themselves spiritually starved. Not for religion in the traditional sense, but for a deeper connection to their own unconscious. Depression, he argued, is not always a disorder, but often a protest, a cry from the soul that refuses to be silenced by superficial success. See, the ego loves order. It clings to routines, to structure, to the illusion of mastery. But the psyche is not linear. It is a living system, a mythological landscape filled with forgotten memories, unmet needs, unlived lives. And when that inner world is neglected long enough, it rebels. That rebellion often comes in the form of depression. Jung once said, "Depression is like a woman in black. If she turns up, don't shoo her away. Invite her in. Offer her a seat." Listen to what she wants to say. It's a radical idea, that instead of treating our sadness as a flaw, we treat it as a guest, a messenger. And the message is this: your soul is out of alignment. You are not broken. You are not weak. But something vital has been ignored. Maybe you've built a life on what others told you mattered. Maybe you've silenced your creativity in exchange for stability. Maybe you've sacrificed authenticity for approval. Or maybe you've simply lost touch with what it means to be alive. Depression is often the price we pay for abandoning the self. In Jungian terms, the self is the totality of who we are, both the conscious ego and the vast unconscious. It includes the parts we show the world and the parts we hide. When we live only through the ego's lens, controlling, managing, performing, we cut ourselves off from the greater whole. And so the self begins to send signals: apathy, exhaustion, an inner emptiness that no success can fill. It's not failure. It's feedback. Think of the person who appears to have it all together. They're efficient, respected, admired, but beneath the surface, they feel like a ghost inside their own life. This is not uncommon. In fact, it's everywhere. Depression is often the shadow of a life unlived, and until you meet that shadow, until you stop running from it, it will keep appearing. In your quiet moments, in your achievements, in the silence between tasks, whispering, "This is not it." But what is? Jung suggested that healing doesn't begin by climbing higher, but by descending, by turning inward, by facing the parts of yourself you've neglected. This is not weakness. This is courage, because few are willing to look at what lies beneath the mask. When depression shows up, you are being asked to enter the underworld of your own psyche, to confront the myths that have shaped you, the beliefs you inherited, the identities you cling to. You are being asked to rediscover yourself, not the version the world demanded, but the one that was buried long ago. This descent is not comfortable, but it is sacred. In myths across cultures, the hero must descend before they rise. They must lose their way, face the monsters within, and emerge transformed. Depression, in this sense, is the beginning of that mythic journey. And no, the world may not recognize this process. It may tell you to smile, to stay productive, to be grateful. But beneath all that noise, your soul is asking for something real. It's asking you to stop pretending, to stop numbing, to stop performing, to stop living a life built only on control. Because real life, the one your unconscious longs for, isn't about performance. It's about presence, depth, meaning. And meaning doesn't come from doing what's expected. It comes from becoming who you truly are. Depression, then, is the dark womb of transformation. A place where the old self dies and the seeds of a new self are planted. And that process, though terrifying, is necessary. You don't have to fear it. You don't have to fight it. You have to listen. What is your sadness trying to show you? What life have you postponed in the name of security? What voice inside you have you silenced in your pursuit of control? These questions matter more than any metric of success, because until you answer them, you will keep achieving and still feel empty. But once you begin to turn toward your inner world, something changes. There's more ahead. In the next part, we'll explore how to navigate this inner descent, how to work with the unconscious instead of against it, and how embracing the darkness might be the most powerful act of healing you'll ever undertake. When the structure of your life begins to feel like a cage, depression can be the first tremor before the collapse. But Jung taught us that collapse is not the end. It is often the beginning of something profoundly real. Not destruction, but transformation. The ego resists this process, clinging to what is familiar, but the unconscious cares nothing for comfort. It seeks wholeness. So how do we respond? First, by honoring the truth that the answers you seek are not out there. They are within. You cannot fix the soul by adjusting external circumstances, a promotion, a relationship, a new goal. These may distract you for a while, but they cannot fill the void if the void is spiritual. The descent into the unconscious begins with listening, but not with your ears, with your life. What patterns are repeating? What dreams keep returning? What do you feel drawn to, and what do you avoid at all costs? These signs are not random. They are symbolic. And Jung believed that to interpret the symbols of the psyche is to begin reclaiming your lost self. Maybe the depression you feel is not just yours. It may belong to a part of you you've disowned. The artist who gave up painting to be practical. The child who never felt safe enough to play. The rebel who surrendered to approval. The romantic who stopped believing in connection. These are not fantasies. These are parts of your soul. Forgotten. Banished. But not dead. In Jungian psychology, we call this the process of individuation. Individuation is the journey of becoming whole, not perfect, not admired, but real. It means integrating the aspects of yourself you've rejected, feared, or denied. It means confronting the shadow, the parts of you you'd rather not see, the envy, the rage, the sadness, the longing, the vulnerability. And here's the paradox. The more you suppress your shadow, the more it controls you from the dark. That's why depression can strike when everything looks fine. Because the shadow will not be ignored. You may succeed in the outer world, but the inner world knows the truth. The truth is, you're not living your truth. And truth has a weight. You can pretend for years, maybe even decades. But eventually the body breaks down. The mind slows. The joy vanishes. Because you were never meant to be a character in someone else's story. So how do you begin this return? Start small. Begin by acknowledging what hurts. Name the emotions you've hidden. Anger, grief, loneliness. Let them speak. Let them exist, without judgment. You are not weak for feeling them. You are human. Jung warned us that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Depression, in this way, is not fate. It is the flashing light on your dashboard. The system is asking for attention. This is the moment where courage is required. Courage to stop numbing yourself with noise. Courage to break routines that kill your spirit. Courage to say, this is not working for me, even when others don't understand. Because healing is not a passive act. It is a revolution, and it's not about fixing yourself. You were never broken. It's about remembering yourself. The self with a capital S, the one that existed before the world told you who to be. That self is still there, waiting. When you sit with your depression long enough, it begins to reveal truths. It shows you what matters and what doesn't. It strips away the superficial. It teaches you the language of your own soul, but you must stay, not flee, not distract, not pretend. There will be days when getting out of bed feels impossible, moments where you question if this inner work is even worth it. But let me remind you of something sacred. The descent is not forever. Just as winter turns to spring, the darkness gives way to light. But only if you walk through it. If you numb it, ignore it, deny it, it stays. But if you face it, something awakens. A deeper awareness, a deeper strength, a deeper life. You may lose relationships in this process. You may walk away from systems that once gave you a sense of identity, but you will gain something far more precious, yourself. And when you do, you'll see that what you called depression was never your enemy. It was your initiation. In the final part, we'll explore how to rebuild from this place, not as a return to your old life, but as the birth of something entirely new. You'll learn how to embody the lessons of the descent and live a life not based on control, but on truth. There comes a moment after the descent when the silence begins to speak, not with the urgency of pain, but with the quiet weight of truth. You start to feel something subtle but unmistakable, the return of yourself. Not the version others expected, not the mask you wore to survive, but something older, truer, something that was waiting for you. All along, Carl Jung taught that healing does not mean going back to who you were before the pain. Healing means becoming who you were meant to be through the pain. So, what now? You've faced the collapse. You've walked through the dark. Now, you stand on the edge of something rare, a new beginning. But this time, it's not about control. It's about alignment. This is where real life begins. Not the one scripted by fear, but the one authored by authenticity. Start by asking, what nourishes me? What brings my soul to life, even in small, fragile ways? Maybe it's the sound of music that once moved you. Maybe it's writing, or walking, or speaking your truth out loud, even if your voice shakes. Maybe it's choosing peace over performance. This is not about rebuilding your old structure. It's about creating a new one, rooted, not in who you should be, but who you are. In Jung's words, your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens. You've been to the depths. You've seen what happens when you ignore your inner world. Now, you have the opportunity to live from it, and that's where transformation becomes power. Not the power to dominate, but the power to remain centered in a chaotic world. The power to speak honestly when it's easier to be silent. The power to live meaningfully instead of mechanically. Here's what no one tells you. Most people don't live from their center. They live from defense mechanisms, from trauma responses, from roles they never chose but learned to perform. But you are breaking that cycle. You are remembering that joy is not something you chase. It's something that returns when you are aligned with truth. You are learning that strength is not the absence of pain, but the willingness to face it with open eyes. You are discovering that depression, when listened to, becomes a guide, not a curse. And maybe now you can begin to forgive yourself for the years you spent ignoring your inner voice, for the days you betrayed your own needs to please others, for the times you confused control with healing, for the shame you carried without knowing why. Let it go. Not because it wasn't real, but because you are ready for something more. Kini. Truth is, the version of you that tried to control everything wasn't bad. It was scared. It was doing its best to survive in a world that punishes vulnerability and rewards perfection. But you are not here to survive. You are here to live. And living means risking pain. It means walking into uncertainty. It means saying yes to your soul even when the world says no. You may still have dark days. Healing is not linear. You may fall. You may forget. But now, you know how to return. You know that depression is not the end. It is an invitation. You know that silence can be sacred. You know that wholeness is not found in perfection, but in integration. And when others look at you and wonder how you carry such depth, such presence, such quiet strength, you won't need to explain. Because you'll know. You earned this. You faced yourself and did not look away. You walked through your own shadows and found the light that was buried beneath them. You are not the same, and that is a blessing. So, let this be your reminder. When depression shows up, right when everything seems in control, it's not sabotage. It's soul work. It is your psyche saying, you're ready. Ready to stop pretending. Ready to feel again. Ready to wake up. And when you do, you'll see that what you feared the most, falling apart, was the very thing that set you free. If this message spoke to something deep inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Someone out there is in the same dark place you were in. They need to know that this isn't the end. They need to hear that the descent has meaning, that they are not broken, that transformation is possible. Share this. Speak up. Let your journey be a mirror for someone else's. Awakening. This is not just healing. This is the return of the self, and it is the most powerful thing you will ever experience.